Okay, hi everyone, SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. I'm back with another video analysis. As you can see, things are a little bit different. This is not my regular computer, my setup at home. This is my laptop at school. It's nowhere near as powerful. I'm not even sure. This is kind of a test. I want to see if this will work or not. This will be a nice, short, quick video. Just some context on what's happened is today I had a really silly day. There was 6-hour orientation at school, of which maybe 1 hour was useful and the other 5 was just, oh, shoot me, why am I here? So I played some chess afterwards, to perk me up, and then immediately I'm against someone rated 2200. I got into a winning position, and then I blundered a mate and won. Unbelievable. This is the very next game, and so I had to avenge myself. Right? Both because I had a silly day and because I just played a silly move against I should have beat someone, and so here we go. Let's go in. And also, this is somewhat useful in the sense that my opponent played b6 and bishop b7, known as the Owens. And this is going to be the next setup, the next video I have in the opening survey section. So that's somewhat topical, and we'll discuss that. I'll just briefly go over some of the highlights here. Is that, again, one of my favorite openings is I talked about g6 and bishop g7, how this can be a heck of a lot of fun. And one of the main appeals is that it's very, very flexible, is that black seemingly has multiple ways of playing, so does white, and games tend to be extremely different after 5-10 moves. It's like a different opening every single time. What's odd is that with this bishop b6 and bishop b7, even though it's the mirror image, and the bishop is even attacking an undefended pawn, and the bishop is aiming at where white likely to castle, these positions do not seem to have that same level of flexibility. Rather, it's almost as if black plays the same general moves all the time, and white can, if he wishes, also play the same general moves. And it's nowhere near as varied. This is a very popular setup, especially on amateur online play, because it requires so little theory. At the same time, white just needs to know one little sequence, and he's pretty fine as well. And so I've done what I've always done, is I play bishop d3, then I play queen e2. So the idea is simply we're overprotecting the e4 square, so that way he could play knight f6, say, but the pawn's already defended. And also, notice how I'm delaying moving either knight. This gives me the flexibility of playing c3 or c4, or I probably won't play f3, but certainly f4 is a useful move potentially to play. And in fact, in all honesty, against just about any white move, in here he played d6, I played f4. And this is kind of my general rule for these types of positions, is that if black is hanging around, sometimes black, they do these silly things where I'll just, they'll do something like this, and they're leaving all their pieces, let's try that again, sort of here, like the hippopotamus-like formation. I find the best antidote as white is to have 3 pawns in the center, because this gives us a chance to play with any 3 of these pawn breaks. And again, when I go into the opening survey, I will explain into more detail about this, but really this is just my personal preference. I find that white gets a heck of a lot more play and easier play by putting 3 pawns in the center. So if we go back, that's exactly what happened. My opponent played d6, so maybe he wants to be a hippo, so I did f4, knight to d7, knight f3, pretty standard. Then he hit out with c5. Okay. I'm going to reinforce the center with c3. And then he played bishop b7. This is somewhat odd. Usually, if he wants to play the hippo-like structures, he's going to play g6 and bishop g7. So the bishop usually wants to go there. So if he's playing it to bishop e7, then he doesn't want the hippo structure, okay, which is fine. But then where's the knight going to go? Right? If he goes to knight f6, I can easily hit with e5. Going to knight h6, is that the best square? I don't know. So, perhaps my opponent was blitzing out the moves too quickly, though maybe not, because I've only used 7 seconds and he used 30. I castled, then he played a6, and here, this is too much of a loss of time. I've got pawns in the center, I'm ready to go, let's go. e5, and I was really hoping my opponent would do what he did. d5. Now this is the standard reaction. When people play this type of hippo-ish like structure, this is generally what they want to do. If I were to play d5, they want to meet it with this. If I play e5, they want to meet with this. They're trying to keep the center closed. But if you were to look at this position, and you were to compare it to a French defense, which as we all know is the worst opening, is that white has a super version of the French defense, the d4 square. Black has no pressure on this, which means he has no pressure on white's center. White's already castled, white's ready to go, and most importantly, white has the pawn break ready. f5. As long as the center is closed, if there's no pawns exchanged, black is okay to be safe here in the center. I mean, maybe it's not ideal, but he's fine. But if these pawns get exchanged, right, then things start opening up, then black he can be in huge trouble. My opponent realizes this, and he's thinking, okay, he doesn't want to castle kingside because I'm already attacking there. Just imagine that was a better arrow. Excellent. New computer, same arrow problems. He doesn't want to stay in the center because, again, the center is opening up very quickly. So he reasons it's time to castle queenside. So he plays queen c7. And so we know what his idea is. He wants to castle queenside because then he'll be okay. Maybe he can use the f-file to attack me. Nah. Now, of course, castling queenside, he's already moved all these pawns, so his king may or may not be very safe over there, but it's probably safer than the alternatives. So we know what our opponent wants to do. We should stop that. And so I take the pawn, of course, he takes back, and then knight g5. Taking advantage of the open f-file, right? So the knight wants to jump in there, and then I'll just win the rook. That's great. Alternatively, just invading in onto f7 is always wonderful. Also notice that it's attacking this e6 pawn, which is very hard to defend. Yeah, unless you had to do something like that, but then, of course, that would allow the infiltration. And so this is actually one of those really important points as well, is that when we're looking at a structure like this, where black doesn't really have any weaknesses, and it's not easy to do anything else. And so if we can exchange pawns, like what happens here, so we compare this position with f5, take, take, well, now this pawn is much weaker than anything else previously, right? You compare this, no real weaknesses, exchange, exchange, big weakness. Black probably has to exchange. Take, take. But now we can see the huge power for white is that the bishop is stopping him from castling queenside. And in fact, at this point, there is a rather large threat. If black were to do nothing, like let's, I don't know, he played b5 or something else, well then, queen h5 check, he blocks, let's sacrifice the queen because that's always fun. And that's actually checkmate. Ooh, pretty cool, eh? And so that's the threat. If you've looked at my the opening course, we know the weakness of the king's diagonal, as I call it. This is, maybe I can color it red. Aha. Wide open, and so he has to be extremely careful. The move he probably wants to play is something like knight e7, but that would run into check here, and then I'm going to dive in. And again, black is in huge trouble here. Again, he can't castle or he loses the knight. That'd be unfortunate. I'm threatening to simply come in here and I'm going to start winning things. And things are bad. But what else does he do? Again, this queen h5 is a huge threat. He doesn't want to play g6 or anything else. He ends up playing knight f8. But we can see how black is on the extreme defense here. He's reacting. He's unable to hit back. White is clearly in the driver's seat. And if we were to go back, this all stemmed from, again, getting that f5 and then exchanging pawns. If I'm unable to do that, then black's, okay, I'm probably better because I have a space advantage, but black, he's alive. Right? He's not having to solve immediate problems. This is why I love getting those pawns there, getting those 3 pawns in the center as fast as possible, because that lets us get these pawns exchanged, which gives black weaknesses, which gives him problems to solve. As it is, he played knight to f8, and it's rather frustrating at this point, actually, because it seems like I have a really good position that I should be able to just crush him, but there is nothing immediate. There's like I couldn't see any way of just like, how do I checkmate him? But the great thing is my position is so good, it's so active, I don't even need to checkmate him immediately. For instance, after just queen f3, he starts running with the king. Again, I'm looking, is there a way to come in? And there might be. The computer says that after something like this, even though there's this, white's just absolutely going to crush in. But I did something even simpler. Queen f7, he moved his king. I simply exchanged, and then brought the rook in with check, won the pawn, and that's great. But one of the great things is that even if I didn't win the pawn, I'm still doing absolutely amazing. Because again, I have a rook already on the 7th rank, which is amazing. I've got more space, I've got the 2 bishops, and a fairly open position. Well, open enough, but we can see how, let's actually just delete that, both bishops are extremely active. If I were fully developed, the game would simply be over. I mean, the game is over, but the game would be even more over at this point. And we can really contrast that with what black can do, which isn't a heck of a lot. Again, okay, I have 2 pieces that aren't developed, but same with him. This rook can't move. This knight also can't move. We can notice how every square, if I can color it properly, is dominated by one of my pieces. This bishop is ugly. In fact, none of his pieces, he could take his pieces and move them several times, and he still won't find a good square. So even if black worked down a pawn, he would be extremely, he's probably still losing regardless. And so the rest of the game isn't that interesting, but it's really going to show how dangerous black's position was, right? How hard it was. Alright, so he comes in, he's trying to push the pawn. By doing this, he's pushing my bishop back, and now he can finally develop the knight. Right, he had to do some incredible contortions trying to get himself stable. Whereas what I can do is simply exchange pieces. Because the more pieces I exchange, like his rook is the only good piece, he's going to be left with nothing. I'm trying to exchange his knight as well, and so after take, he brings his rook over, that's fine. He brings his knight over. Again, no qualms at all. Simply take it. Now it's true, the bishop is probably better than the knight, but the knight's his best piece. After we exchange, we play knight f3. Again, my bishop is great, my rook is awesome, it can easily target a whole bunch of things, my knight's very good. He has one rook, a crappy knight that's pinned, and a bishop that can't do anything. And so the more I'm exchanging pieces, the easier it gets. And we'll see that I'm able to just round everything up. He tries to make some random checks. This game, it's not really useful at this point. I think he actually just times out in a second. Oh no, he loses his rook. Whoops! I completely forgot what the game was like. Alright, so this is... I played b3 because I wanted to play a4 to trap the bishop, but that wasn't necessary in the slightest, and then he blundered. But even if he didn't do that, again, he's already down material with a terrible position with all of his pieces bad, and it's... this simply sped up the loss. How about that? So what's the takeaway from this game? Well, the first takeaway is we're going to see if this is actually a useful video, if this may be a way for me to do that. Again, I can't edit it with the software I have. I'll try and find something at some time, but again, my focus should be on school right now, as opposed to making videos. But sometimes, you know, if you're going to waste 5 hours of my time, then, well, maybe I can make a chess video. But other than that, it's this idea. Notice how, again, you play bishop e3 and queen e2, which I am fairly certain as well is the main line in Grandmaster play. Not that b6 is played very often in Grandmaster play, but I'm fairly certain this is considered the main line. With the idea of delaying the knights just enough, and not necessarily both of them, but just enough so we can get either pawn going. Now, I used the f-pawn in this game, but it's certainly possible to do the same thing over here. Playing c4, let me just put some random moves on. Let's pretend he's playing like the hippo. And it could be very, very similar if you know anything about the King's Indian. Let's say we reach a structure like this. Well, again, black, he's got his bishop over here, staring at the pawns. Normally in the King's Indian, you want to keep the bishop here so it could sacrifice over here on something. Maybe black gets here going, but white also would have very fast queenside play with his coming pawns. Alternatively, we don't need to play d5. We could just get ready to play b4 and c5 at some point. We're playing on the queen side, and again, we've got options. Or we could just sit, finish developing, and things are fine. And so this is, again, my preferred way of playing against this, is trying to get 3 pawns in the center, and then also, if we saw in the game, by my opponent was wasting time, so he's wasting time in an opening that's already wasting time. That was really suspect. Is getting that pawn exchanged. Because again, we compare this position here, right? He has no weaknesses. He still has no real weaknesses. Now he has that weakness, just by exchanging pawns. And we can see how this makes his position so much more difficult. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. So hopefully that was helpful, hopefully that was useful. Hopefully this video actually turned out, and I didn't just waste 15 minutes of my time. But that's that. Again, don't expect a heck of a lot more, but I will see what happens. I still like chess, and it's a fun way to decompress after some school. How about that? Anyway, so that's going to be it. Nothing more to add. I hope this was useful. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. SmithyQ, SmithyQ.com. Bye for now.